We've almost completed everything that we need to do to set up the document package within this overall system in which we have templates that use a shared or master component file. Uh, we've just checked the document package itself. It looks like it's functioning as expected. We have individual templates, of course, and we would still presumably want to have the ability to assemble documents from those templates individually. But I'm going to highlight the trust here and click on Component Manager to demonstrate something here with respect to the interview that's been set up for this trust. So I'm in Component Manager. I'm going to click on Component File Properties here, and then I'm going to go to the Interview tab. And you'll see that, first of all, the individual component file for this template. So mastertrust.cmp is referenced here. And you can see that it's set up to use a custom interview, and that interview is the document package interview that we just set up. If I were to click on OK, close out of this and do the same thing here with the will, go into Component File Properties, again into the Interview tab, same thing. In other words, the will is set up to use the document package interview. Okay, and as you might guess, if I were to do the same thing with the financial power of attorney, I would see the same thing. So in other words, each of these individual templates, as things stand right now, are set to use the document package interview. Well, as you might guess, what that means here is if I were to click on assemble or otherwise initiate an assembly from any one of these templates, I'd go through the document package process. In other words, I'd have the ability at that point to produce not only a trust, but perhaps a will and a financial power of attorney, because that's what we're showing to the user in terms of the interview that the user would see. But ideally what we'd want to do in this situation, if we select any one of these individual templates, we just want to see the interview for that particular template and not go through the more comprehensive document package interview that we just set up. So what we need to do in this situation where we have individual templates tied to or sharing a component file is we need to make sure that each of those templates still has the capability to produce its own document through its own interview. So what I'm going to do here in the trust, or in other words, the component file properties for the trust, is I'm going to go back into the Interview tab. And you'll notice there's a box down here that's checked. It says use interview properties stored in the shared component file. That shared component file, of course, is called master.cmp. So it has its own interview properties. And because it's a shared component file, if we don't indicate otherwise, its interview properties are going to be used for any template that's tied to it. We want to change that so that each individual template has its own interview properties. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to uncheck this box. And you'll notice when I do that, things change a little bit up here with regard to the selection of interview type. Right now it's set up to use a default interview. Of course, I could change this, and perhaps what I would do in this situation, if I had a custom interview set up just for the trust, I would want to either select that from the drop-down if it's already created, or of course I'd have the opportunity to create a trust-specific custom interview by way of a new interview computation. But we'll keep things simple here and just say, for right now at least, so we want to use a default interview. But the idea here is that we want to establish individual interview properties for these individual templates, and that entails, again, unchecking this box and then designating what kind of interview you want to establish for this individual template. So I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. Having done that now for the trust, I'm going to do the same thing for the will. I'm just going to uncheck this, and I'll again go ahead and leave this as a default interview for now. And then I'll go ahead and do the same thing for the financial power of attorney. It's really just a matter of checking this box and breaking that link, if you will, between the interview properties set up in the shared or master component file and any individual template tied to it. So now if I were to come in here and initiate an assembly for the trust, let me go ahead and click on OK. Notice that the trust interview comes up, but I don't have any sort of document selection or anything else that's really coming from the document package interview. So I now have, let me just go ahead and close out of this. I now have the best of both worlds, really. I have the ability, by way of what I've just done, to assemble individual documents from individual templates, which of course you'll have occasion to do. But if the situation is more often than not, you want to create a document package and produce multiple documents simultaneously and coming out of a single interview, we now have that functionality as well, as represented by this item here in the library. That completes the sequence necessary to establish a document package when you have templates using a shared or master component file. And again, that's the standard, or what we consider to be the standard or typical way of setting it up. In the last video in the sequence, we're just going to discuss a couple of different permutations you may want to consider if your situation is different. And that again comes in the next video here in the sequence.